Hi, this is Austin. Welcome to my channel. Reaching my first 150k wasn't a moment of excitement or celebration the way many people imagine. There was no dramatic turning point or sudden feeling that everything had changed overnight. Instead, it felt quiet and surprisingly calm. What made this milestone meaningful wasn't the number itself, but what it represented after years of consistent investing in VOO and QQQ. It showed me that the patient actually works, that small and repetitive actions do add up, and that discipline matters more than motivation. Looking back, the journey to 150k taught me far more about mindset than about market. And as I move into 2026, these lessons are shaping how I think, how I invest, and how I prepare for the next stage for my financial journey. One of the clearest lessons I learned on the way to my first 150k is that consistency matters far more than motivation. There were plenty of months when I feel inspired and confident, but there were just as many when I feel tired, distracted, or unsure. Motivation came and went, and I slowly realized that it was never something I could rely on long term. What actually carried me forward was a simple, repeatable system. Investing the same way, at the same time, month after month. I didn't wait to feel ready, and I didn't stop when things feel boring or uncomfortable. That consistency did the heavy lifting when motivation was missing. As I head into 2026, this lesson reminds me to keep strengthening my systems, because habits don't get tired, emotions do. Another lesson that became very clear as I worked toward my first 150k is that time in the market matters far more than time in the market. Along the way, there were many moments when it felt tempting to wait for a better entry or to try to predict what the market would do next. But instead of trying to be precise, I stayed invested and focused on the long term. Looking back, none of the small timing decisions would have made a meaningful difference compared to simply staying in the market. The real advantage came from letting time do its job, allowing compounding to work quietly in the background. This lesson has shaped how I think about uncertainty going into 2026. I don't need perfect timing. I need patience and enough time for my strategy to play out. As my portfolio grew, I learned that investing isn't just about financial challenge, it's an emotional one. Market drops, sudden rallies, and constant news cycle tests my patience more than my knowledge. Early on, I realized how easy it was to feel anxious when prices fall, or overly confident when things went well. Reaching my first 150k required learning how to stay emotionally steady through both extremes. Emotional control didn't come naturally. It was a skill I had to build over time by experiencing uncertainty and choosing not to react to it. The more I practiced staying calm, the more consistent my decision became. This lesson now plays a central role in how I invest, especially as I move into 2026, where staying level-headed matters far more than reacting quickly. One of the most practical lessons I learned on the path to 150k is that simple strategies are often the most powerful ones. For me, focusing mainly on VOO and QQQ removed a lot of unnecessary complexity from my investing life. I didn't need to constantly research new ideas, adjust positions, or second-guess my choices. The simplicity gave me clarity, and that clarity made it easier to stay consistent over time. As my portfolio grew, I realized that complexity doesn't automatically lead to better results. It often leads to more stress and more mistakes. Simple strategies scale better because they are easier to stick with during both good and bad markets. This lesson continues to guide my approach as I think about long-term sustainability heading into 2026. For a long time, the progress toward my first 150k felt almost invisible. Month after month, I kept investing, but the numbers didn't move in a way that felt exciting or rewarding. There were periods when it seemed like all the effort wasn't leading anywhere meaningful. But then, almost without warning, the growth became noticeable. Compounding started to show itself, and the results that once felt distant suddenly feel real. This lesson told me that slow progress isn't a sign of failure, it's simply a part of progress. Most of the journey happens quietly, long before the result becomes obvious. As I move forward, especially into 2026, This reminder helped me stay patient and trust the work I am doing, even when the progress doesn't immediately show up. These 5 lessons didn't just help me to reach my first 150K, they are now shaping how I approach investing in 2026. Consistency reminds me to focus on system instead of motivation. Time over timing reinforces the importance of staying invested through uncertainty. Emotional control keeps me from reacting to short-term noise. Simplicity helps me stay focused and unsustainable. And patience reminds me that progress doesn't need to be visible to be real. Together, these lessons push me toward refinement rather than reinvention this year. I'm not trying to overhaul my strategy or chase new ideas. Instead, I am strengthening the habits and mindsets that already proven their work. In 2026, my goal is to invest with more clarity, more calm, and more confidence than ever before. If I were talking to someone who's still chasing their first 100K or 150K, I'd tell them to focus less on speed and more on direction. The early stage of investing can feel frustrating because progress is slow and mistakes feel expensive. But the phase is where habits are formed and mindset is built. I'd tell them not to underestimate how powerful consistency can be, even when the numbers feel small. I'd remind them that doubt is normal. Boredom is part of the process, and uncertainty never fully disappears. What matters most is staying invested, staying patient, and staying aligned with the long-term plan. The goal isn't to rush to the milestone, it's to become the kind of investor who is capable of reaching it and holding onto it. Reaching my first 150K changed some things, but it didn't change everything. It didn't suddenly make life easier overnight, and it didn't remove uncertainty or risk from investing. The market still moves the same way, and the discipline is still required every single month. What did change was my confidence and perspective. I began to trust my process more and feel less shaken by short-term fluctuations. I stopped seeing market drop as personal failures and started viewing them as a part of a much longer journey. At the same time, my core habits stayed exactly the same. I still invest consistently, stay focused on the long term, and avoid emotional decisions. This milestone wasn't a finish line, it was simply a checking point that confirmed I was moving in the right direction. Looking back, the real meaning of my first 150K has very little to do with the number itself. What truly matters is the person I became while building it. Someone more patient, more disciplined, and more comfortable with uncertainty. This milestone didn't signal the end of my journey, it simply marked the beginning of a new phase where experience mattered more than excitement. As I move forward into 2026, I carry these lessons with me, knowing they will guide every decision I make from here on out. The first 150K taught me that long-term investing isn't about reaching a single goal, it's about building a mindset strong enough to last for decades. Thanks for watching, I'm Austin, and see you next week.